The entire restaurant didn't go silent because I bowed. It went silent because of how I spoke. Not the polished Seoul Korean they expect from a shy waitress. Not textbook phrases or polite service talk. I greeted him in Gyeongsang Dialect, the rough coastal Korean you only use with family. The old man's hand froze over his glass. His son beside him, tall, sharp, dangerous, went completely still. Because I hadn't just said welcome. I used the honorific a granddaughter gives an elder she was raised by. A dialect that didn't belong here. A greeting that carried blood. And in that one sentence, I exposed the secret I'd spent 6 years hiding. My name is Grace Kim, and 5 seconds ago I was invisible. Just another Asian waitress in Koreatown that nobody looked at twice. But the words that escaped my mouth, words my grandmother whispered to me every night before she died, had just shattered everything. The ghost I'd been running from wasn't standing across the room. He was staring at me with recognition dawning in his eyes. And there was nowhere left to hide. Before this story takes you further, pause with me for a moment. If you've ever hidden your real name to stay safe. If you've ever spoken your grandmother's language and felt the weight of memory in every syllable. If you've ever been the quiet one because quiet meant survival, you're not alone here. This is a Korean mafia romance storytelling channel for the ones who carry languages nobody expects them to know. For the granddaughters who remember. For the women who learned to be invisible because being seen was too dangerous. If stories about women who can't stay hidden, who speak words that expose them, who choose truth even when lies kept them alive, make you feel understood, subscribing isn't just support. It tells YouTube that stories like ours matter. That voices like yours deserve space in a world that tells us to be smaller. You belong here. Stay with us. I'd worked at Han's Palace for 2 years without anyone learning my real family name. On my employment papers, I was Grace Kim, generic enough to be anyone. Korean American, born in LA, unremarkable. The kind of girl who refilled water and removed plates without making eye contact. I wore my hair pulled back tight. Spoke only when spoken to. Perfected the art of being background noise. It kept me alive. Grace. Manager Park snapped his fingers. VIP room. Tonight. The Kang family is dining. My blood turned to ice. I usually work the floor. Sumi is sick. You're covering. His eyes were hard. These aren't regular customers. This is the family. You spill something, you're fired. You speak unless spoken to, you're fired. You even breathe wrong. I'm fired. I understand. The Kang family. Everyone in New York's Korean community knew the name even if they pretended not to. Legitimate on the surface, real estate, imports, restaurants. But underneath, they were old-world power transplanted to American soil. I should have walked out. Called in sick. Run like I'd been running since my grandmother died. But I needed this job. Needed the rent money. Needed to believe I could stay Grace Kim forever. That Han Jina, the granddaughter of Han Tae-sik, the man who betrayed the Kangs 40 years ago, could stay buried. The VIP room was elegant. Dark wood, paper screens, a low table set for 10 with hand-painted porcelain. I was arranging chopsticks when they arrived. Security came first. 2 men who scanned the room with professional eyes. Then the family. I kept my head down as they entered, but I felt the shift. The way power changes the air. A warm voice. Father, please sit. I glanced up despite myself. The man speaking was in his 70s, distinguished in the way money and authority creates. White hair, careful posture. He moved slowly, with the deliberate care of someone in pain he wouldn't acknowledge. This was Kang Hyun-woo, the grandfather. The old guard who'd built the empire. Beside him stood a younger man, early 40s, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that belonged in Korean dramas but carried too much weight to be soft. He helped his father sit with careful attention. This was Kang Min-ho. The heir. The future. I'm fine, son. Min-ho's eyes swept the room once, landing on me for exactly 2 seconds. Cataloging. Dismissing. Staff. Invisible. Perfect. I moved through the dinner like a ghost. Banchan, kimchi, namul, pickled vegetables. Galbi, beef short ribs that smelled like my grandmother's kitchen. The conversation flowed in Korean, business talk carefully coded for safety. I understood every word. My grandmother had taught me Korean, but more importantly, she'd taught me Gyeongsang Dialect. Not Seoul Standard. The rough, coastal speech from Busan, the same city the Kangs had left in the 1960s. The same city my grandfather had destroyed them from. More water, Min-ho said, not looking up from his phone. I approached with the pitcher, hands steady through years of practice controlling fear. You're new, Kang Hyun-woo said in Korean. Statement, not question. Yes, sir. 2 years here. Quiet. Good. The quiet ones work hard without drama. His eyes never left his plate. My son likes efficiency. Min-ho made a sound that might have been amusement. Father, please. What? I'm old. I can say what I want. The table chuckled. I smiled slightly, keeping my eyes down, stepping back into the shadows where I belonged. But then Kang Hyun-woo said something that stopped my heart. Do you remember Han Tae-sik? He asked someone at the table. The union organizer from Busan. The one who? He didn't finish. Everyone knew. My grandfather had been Kang Hyun-woo's right hand in Korea. Trusted. Loved like a brother. Until he'd testified against them to the prosecutors. Destroyed the network they'd spent decades building. Sent Kang men to prison while he walked free under witness protection. The Kangs never forgot. Never forgave. My grandmother fled with my mother, changed their names, buried themselves in America's immigrant communities. But she taught me the old dialect. The old stories. Because she said, never forget who you are, Gina. Never forget what we survived. Even if what we survived still wanted us dead. Traitor. Someone spat the word. Enough. Kang Hyun-woo's voice was quiet but final. Old ghosts. Not tonight. I was clearing the galbi plates, reaching for Kang Hyun-woo's, when my sleeve caught his water glass. Time fractured. The glass tipped. Water spread across the white tablecloth, pooling toward his place setting. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned to me. I whispered. I'm sorry. I grabbed my towel, reaching to stop the water. Kang Hyun-woo's hand caught my wrist. Firm but not painful. He was staring at my wrist. At the thin silver bracelet there, traditional Korean knotwork, with a small jade charm. The kind they only made in Busan. In the 1970s. Before the old ways disappeared. Where did you get this? His voice was very calm. The kind of calm that preceded violence. My grandmother's, I said, barely audible. Your grandmother. He turned my wrist, examining the jade. And where was your grandmother from? This was it. The moment I could lie. Say Seoul. Say anywhere else. But something in his eyes, something that looked like grief wearing the mask of anger, made me tell the truth. Busan, I whispered. The silence that followed was suffocating. Min-ho was standing, his hand moving inside his jacket. Where the gun probably lived. Kang Hyun-woo released my wrist slowly. What is your family name, girl? Here, I'm Grace Kim. My voice shook. But my grandmother's name was Han Eun-suk. I watched recognition hit him like a physical blow. Han Tae-sik's granddaughter, he breathed. Good God. His blood in my restaurant. Serving me water. I didn't know you'd be here, I said quickly. I've been hiding. Running. I don't know anything about my grandfather's business. I was a child when he died. I just needed work. To survive, Kang Hyun-woo finished. His expression was unreadable. Like your did. Like your mother did. He stood. Everyone at the table tensed. Min-ho started. Father. Be quiet. Kang Hyun-woo stepped closer to me. I forced myself not to flinch. Tell me, Han Jina. Do you speak the old language? Or just Seoul Standard? My throat was dry. I speak both. Not what I asked. His eyes held mine. Dialect. You're taught, you? Yes. Then greet me. It wasn't a request. The proper way. The old way. How our people greet their elders. This was a test with no right answer. Formal Seoul Korean would be disrespectful, too cold. But using the intimate dialect only family used would be claiming kinship I had no right to claim. But my grandmother's voice was in my head. The way she'd made me practice. Always show respect to elders, Gina. Even if they hate us. Especially then. I looked directly at Kang Hyun-woo. And I spoke in the Gyeongsang dialect my grandmother had drilled into me. The rough, coastal Korean that marked you as from there. I am honored to see you, respected elder. This house is blessed by your presence. But I'd said it in the old Busan way. Dropped syllables. Rough consonants. The speech pattern of fishing villages and dock workers. The language of their childhood. The room didn't just go silent. It stopped existing. Because I hadn't used textbook Korean. I'd used their grandmother's Korean. The dialect that was dying. The speech that marked you as old guard. As real. Kang Hyun-woo's face cycled through shock, recognition, and something that looked like pain. You sound like my mother, he said, his voice rough. Exactly like her. The old Busan way. Not the television Korean. The real thing. The dying thing. He reached out and cupped my face with both hands. The gesture a grandfather would use. Han Tae-sik was a traitor, he said softly. But he was also my brother. My friend. Before everything broke. Tears burned my eyes. I know. And his granddaughter. He studied my face. You have his eyes. But yours mouth. Eun-suk was beautiful. Strong. She didn't deserve what happened. None of them deserved it. No. He released me. No, they didn't. He turned to Min-ho. We're leaving. Dinner is over. Now. As the family filed out, Min-ho paused beside me. He set a business card on the table. Tomorrow. Noon. This address. Come alone. Why? Because my father wants answers. And because, he paused. Because I want to understand how Han Tae-sik's granddaughter ended up here. Speaking our language. Looking at my father with the same eyes that betrayed him. He left before I could respond. I stood there shaking, holding the card, wondering if I'd just been given an invitation or a death sentence. The address on Min-ho's card led to a high-rise in the financial district. Glass and steel touching the sky. The security guard's demeanor changed the moment he saw the card. 48th floor. You're expected. The elevator rose through layers of wealth and power. By the time it opened, I was looking down at Manhattan like a god. The receptionist smiled. Miss Han. This way. She knew my real name. She led me to an office where Kang Hyun-woo sat behind a massive desk. Min-ho stood by the windows, hands in pockets, silhouetted against the city. Gina, Kang Hyun-woo said, using my Korean name. Sit. Please. I sat because my legs wouldn't hold me. You look terrified. Why? His voice was almost kind. Because you know who I am. What my grandfather did. I know what he did. Kang Hyun-woo poured tea. Traditional ceremony. But you are not him. Your grandmother's sins don't transfer to you. That would be uncivilized. He pushed tea toward me. I didn't touch it. You think it's poisoned? He smiled. If I wanted you dead, you'd be dead. I don't invite corpses for tea. Why did you invite me? Min-ho turned from the window. Because you're impossible. Han Tae-sik's bloodline should be dead or hiding. Instead, you're serving food in our restaurant, speaking our dialect, wearing your grandmother's jewelry where anyone could see. I didn't know you'd be there. We own that restaurant, Min-ho said. We own most Korean establishments in Manhattan. We've known about Grace Kim for 6 months. Waiting to see what you'd do. My stomach dropped. You've been watching me? Since we flagged your background check. Kang Hyun-woo's voice was matter-of-fact. We needed to know if you were a threat. If you were working for our enemies. If you came for revenge. I came for rent money. I'm trying to survive. We know. Min-ho moved to sit across from me. Up close, his eyes were impossibly dark. You work 2 jobs. Send money to your mother in LA every month. You don't date. Don't socialize. You live like you're already dead. He knew everything. They'd been dissecting my life while I thought I was invisible. If you know all this, I said, why am I here? Because you speak the old language, Kang Hyun-woo said. And that matters more than you know. He stood, moving to the windows, backlit by afternoon sun. Do you know what it's like to watch your culture die, Gina? To hear your mother's language disappear? My grandchildren speak English. Maybe some Seoul Korean. But the old Busan dialect? The way my mother spoke? It's dying with my generation. And then you appeared, he continued. A girl I thought was nobody. Greeting me in my mother's voice. Perfect accent. Perfect respect. Suddenly I was 8 years old in Busan, listening to the gossip at the market. He turned to face me. You gave me a gift, Gina. You gave me my childhood back. For 30 seconds. And I want to understand why. My made me promise, I said quietly. She said, the language is who we are. Without it, we're just Americans with Korean faces. Remember, Gina. Remember for all of us who can't. Kang Hyun-woo's eyes glistened. Your was wise. She was broken, I corrected. My grandfather's betrayal destroyed her. My mother stopped speaking Korean to forget. I was all had. So she taught me. Every night. Stories. Prayers. Dialect. She made me memorize things I didn't understand so the words wouldn't die with her. And now you work at our restaurant, Min-ho said. Hiding from us. Afraid we'd kill you. Wouldn't you? I met his eyes. My grandfather destroyed your family. He testified under duress, Kang Hyun-woo said quietly. The prosecutors threatened to deport to take your mother away. He was weak, but he was protecting his family. I stared at him. You forgive him? I understand him, Kang Hyun-woo corrected. That's different. But I don't punish granddaughters for grandfather's mistakes. That would make me a monster. He returned to his desk. Which brings us to why you're really here. If you're still here, it means this story has touched something real. Most people don't stay when stories slow down like this. When the danger shifts from physical to emotional. When you realize that Grace isn't fighting men with guns, she's fighting the weight of languages she was told to forget. Of histories she was taught to hide. You stayed because you understand what it means to carry your grandmother's voice in a world that doesn't want to hear it. This Korean Mafia romance storytelling channel exists for listeners like you. The ones who know that the bravest thing isn't speaking up, it's speaking in a language that exposes exactly who you are. Where you came from. What you're not supposed to remember. Subscribing means you understand this kind of courage. The kind that says, I will carry these words even if they mark me. Even if they make me visible. Even if being seen is dangerous. That's not just Grace's story. It's ours. Stay with us. I want to hire you, Kang Hyun-woo said. I blinked. For what? I'm writing my memoirs. Not for publication. For family. Our history. The old stories. But I want it written in Gyeongsang Dialect. So my grandchildren can hear their great-grandmother's voice. Their heritage. Before it disappears. You want me to I couldn't finish. Transcribe. In dialect. Min-ho leaned forward. My father will tell the stories. You'll write them exactly as he speaks them. Preserving the language. The idioms. The things that die in translation. Why me? You could hire a professor. Professors speak textbook Korean, Kang Min-ho said. They've never heard an yelling at her grandchildren. They've never heard a father teaching his son to pray. You have. Your gave you living memory. That's worth more than any degree. And, Min-ho added carefully, my father believes it's poetic justice. Han Tae-sik's granddaughter preserving the Kang family history. The betrayed protecting the betrayer's memory. Is this revenge? I asked bluntly. Some elaborate way to. No. Kang Hyun-woo's voice was firm. It's an old man trying to make peace with ghosts. Yours and mine. He pushed a folder across the desk. Inside was a contract. The salary made my vision blur. This is. I couldn't breathe. Fair payment for specialized work, Min-ho said. 3 days a week. 4 hours per session. 6 months. 6 months of remembering together, Kang Hyun-woo said softly. And maybe, Gina, both our families can stop running from what happened. I looked at the number. At the chance to breathe. To stop working 70-hour weeks. To live instead of just surviving. But more than that, I looked at Kang Hyun-woo's face. At the hope there. The loneliness. He wasn't offering me a job. He was offering redemption. For both of us. I have one condition, I said. Name it. Tell me the truth about what my grandfather did. Not the legend. The truth. I deserve to know. Kang Hyun-woo's smile was sad. Yes. You do. We'll start with that story. The hardest one first. I signed the contract. Behind him, Min-ho watched with an expression I couldn't read. Something between curiosity and something else. Something that made my pulse quicken. 3 days later, I sat in Kang Hyun-woo's private study, wood and paper and the smell of ink, with a recording device between us. Tell me about the day you met my grandfather, I said. He spoke for 4 hours. In Gyeongsang Dialect. About 2 boys in Busan in the 1950s. About friendship. About coming to America. About building something from nothing. He was my brother, Kang Hyun-woo said, his voice thick with memory. Closer than blood. We survived the war together. Built the business together. I trusted him with my life. When did it change? 1973, the prosecutors came. They had evidence. Not enough to convict, but enough to threaten. They told your grandfather they'd deport that your mother would grow up in Korea with nothing. Unless he testified. Kang Hyun-woo looked at me. Your grandfather came to me. Begging for a solution. And I told him to take the deal. My pen stopped. You what? I told him to save his family, Kang Hyun-woo said firmly. Because that's what I would have done. What any father would do. Family comes first. Always. But the business could be rebuilt. Was rebuilt. His voice was steady. But your mother? She was 3 years old. How could I ask him to sacrifice her? My eyes burned. Then why did he run? Why did he think you'd kill them? Because your grandfather panicked. Testified without warning me first. I was angry. Young. Stupid. I said things. Threatened things. Kang Hyun-woo's voice cracked. By the time I calmed down, they'd disappeared. And I never got to tell him. Tell him what? That I forgave him. That I understood. That he was still my brother. He wiped his eyes. I carried that regret for 40 years, Gina. Until you walked into my restaurant and spoke my mother's words. And suddenly, I had a chance. I was crying now. Died thinking you hated her. I know. And I'm sorry. He reached across the desk, took my hands. But you're here now. Real. And I can say what I never got to say to Taesik. That I'm sorry. For the fear. For the years. For all of it. We sat there, hands clasped, crying together. Two people bound by betrayal, finally letting it go. When I left, Min-ho was waiting in the hallway. You heard? I asked. Every word. His expression was soft. Grieving. I never knew. He never told me he'd given permission. He's been carrying it alone. Like you've been carrying your family's fear alone. Min-ho stepped closer. Gina, I need you to understand something. My father sees you as penance. A way to forgive himself. But I don't see you that way. How do you see me? As someone I want to know, he said quietly. Beyond the history. Beyond the names. Just you. My breath caught. Min-ho. I know it's complicated. But complications don't make feelings less real. His hand lifted, almost touching my face, then dropped. Think about that. He walked away, leaving me in the hallway, heart racing, not knowing if I was terrified or hopeful or both. Weeks passed. 3 days a week, I transcribed Kang Hyun-woo's memories. Stories about Korea. About war. About building an empire from nothing. But more than that, I listened to him remember my grandfather. Before the betrayal. When they were brothers. And slowly, I began to understand that my family's story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about impossible choices. About survival. About love that couldn't survive the weight of the world. Min-ho was there more often now. Bringing his father tea. Medication. Sitting in the corner, listening to the old stories in a dialect he barely understood. One day, after Kang Hyun-woo fell asleep mid-sentence, Min-ho walked me to the elevator. He's happier, Min-ho said. Since you started. He smiles more. He's remembering home. He's remembering his friend. Min-ho pressed the elevator button. There's a difference. We stood in silence. Comfortable silence. Why do you do this? I asked. The legitimate business. You could have been him? Min-ho smiled slightly. I could have. But I saw what the old ways cost. I wanted something different. Something cleaner. Do you resent him? I resent that I'll never be entirely free of his world, Min-ho admitted. But I don't resent him. He did what he had to do. Like your grandfather did. The elevator arrived. Min-ho held the door. Gina, he said. Would you have dinner with me? Not business. Just us. My heart stopped. Min-ho, I don't think. I know it's complicated, he interrupted. But I'm tired of pretending I don't feel this. Whatever this is. So. Dinner. Tomorrow. Say yes. I should have said no. Should have kept boundaries. Should have protected myself. Instead, I said yes. His smile was worth every complication that would follow. This is usually the moment when casual listeners leave. When they realize this isn't a simple revenge story or a quick enemies to lovers arc. When you understand that Grace isn't choosing between good and evil, she's choosing between safety and truth. Between hiding and being known. But you stayed. That tells me you're not here for easy. You're here for real. For the messy, complicated truth that sometimes the people who should be your enemies are the only ones who see you. Really see you. You're here for Korean Mafia romance that understands that love in this world means choosing someone whose family your family told you to fear. And choosing them anyway. Consciously. With your whole heart. If you understand that kind of courage, the courage to let yourself be seen when invisibility kept you alive, then this channel was made for you. Subscribe. Not because I'm asking. Because you're the kind of person who understands that the bravest thing Grace is doing isn't speaking Korean. It's learning to speak the language of trust. To someone who could destroy her. Who she's choosing anyway. You've stayed this long. You're already one of us. He took me to a small Korean restaurant in Flushing. Family-owned. Quiet. I thought Mafia Heirs ate at fancy places, I teased. I eat where is good and nobody cares about my last name. He pulled out my chair. Plus, this way you can't accuse me of showing off. Dinner was easy. We talked about everything except the complicated parts. His architecture degree he'd never used. My abandoned plan to be a translator. Books. Movies. Dreams. Where would you go, he asked. If you could go anywhere. Seoul, I said. To see where he came from. To hear the language alive in the streets. Not dying. Not hidden. Just real. We should go. He said it like international trips were nothing. Then caught himself. Sorry. Assuming. I don't mind. Being included in futures. I'm not used to it. Why not? Because I never let anyone close enough. Plans require trust. Trust requires vulnerability. I was bad at both. And now? I looked at him across the table. At the way he listened. Really listened. Now I'm trying, I said honestly. After dinner, we walked through Flushing. Queens at night. Neon signs in Korean. The smell of tteokbokki and distant singing from Noribang. Tell me something true, Min-ho said. Something you've never told anyone. Sometimes I forget what his voice sounded like. I have her words. Her stories. But the actual sound? It's fading. And I'm terrified I'm losing her all over again. Min-ho was quiet. Then, that's why you record everything with my father. To capture the voice before it's gone. Yes. That's beautiful, Gina. And heartbreaking. But beautiful. We reached my building. His suit. My broken buzzer. The divide between our worlds obvious. Thank you, I said. For making it normal. For just being you. Can I be honest? Min-ho asked. Please. I've been on hundreds of dates. Business dinners. Charity events. Arranged meetings with daughters of allied families. Women who wanted the Kang name. He stepped closer. But tonight, talking about soul and voices we're afraid of losing? This was the first time I felt like I was with someone real. Someone who sees me. Not the name. And I don't want it to end. It was one date. It doesn't have to be. His hand cupped my cheek. Gina, I know this is fast. But I haven't felt this way in years. Maybe ever. And I think you feel it too. Feeling something doesn't make it smart. No. But it makes it real. And I'm tired of playing it safe. He leaned in slowly. One more date? The kiss was soft. Question more than answer. One more, I agreed. But we both knew it wouldn't stop there. Kang Hyun-woo's birthday was on a Saturday in spring. Small celebration, Min-ho told me. But father wants you there. Says your family now. The word terrified me. Family meant obligations. Loyalty. Things I didn't know how to give. The party was at Kang Hyun-woo's home in Fort Lee. From the outside, modest. Inside, elegant. Traditional. Photographs everywhere, generations of Kangs. I arrived with a gift, a hand-lettered story in Gyeongsang Dialect. His father's story about coming to America. Framed. When he opened it, his hands shook. Gina, he breathed. This is my father's words. Exactly as he would have said them. As you said them. When you told me. He pulled me into an embrace. Thank you, daughter. The word hit like a physical blow. I saw Min-ho across the room, watching. His expression warm. The evening was chaotic. Loud. Full of family I didn't know, cousins arguing, aunts gossiping, children running. I helped in the kitchen because it gave me purpose. Min-ho found me there. You don't have to work at a party, he said. Old habits. I rinsed a plate. Besides, your Aunt Young-suk is scary. He laughed. Fair. He grabbed a towel, started drying. So. You're officially family now. Father called you daughter. I heard. How does that feel? Terrifying. Like being given something I don't deserve. Something I've wanted my whole life but never thought I'd have. Belonging? Yes. Min-ho set down the towel. Turned me to face him. You belong here, Gina. Not because of history. Not because of guilt. But because you're you. And I want you here. The kitchen felt small. Warm. Min-ho. I'm in love with you, he said simply. I know it's fast. But I love you. The way you carry languages nobody remembers. The way you cry at my father's stories. The way you're kind and scared and brave all at once. Tears spilled. You don't even know me. Then let me. His hands framed my face. Let me spend the rest of my life learning everything. Starting now. Starting with this, can you stop running long enough to see if you love me too? I looked at him. At this man who'd gone from threat to shelter. I'm falling for you, I admitted. And it terrifies me. Because you're a Kang. And I'm a Han. And our families made their choices, Min-ho interrupted. Now we make ours. So choose, Gina. Choose to trust this. Choose me. I kissed him. Not soft. But certain. I choose you, I whispered. Even though it's crazy. Even though I'm scared. I choose you. Thank God, he breathed. Because I was running out of speeches. Through the window, I saw Kang Hyun-woo watching. Smiling. The grief in his eyes finally easing. The book launch was small. Private. Just family. Memories of Busan, the cover read. Written in Gyeongsang Dialect. Transcribed by Han Gina Kang. My new last name still felt strange. Wonderful. Min-ho's hand found mine as Kang Hyun-woo stood to speak. 1 year ago, he said, voice strong despite 77 years, a young woman spoke my mother's language. She gave me memory. Peace. And she gave my son something I never could, a life that's his own. Love he chose. He looked at me, eyes warm. Gina has given me many gifts. But the greatest? Teaching me that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's freedom. For everyone. Thank you, daughter. I replied. Thank you, father. Later, on the roof where we could see the city, Min-ho pulled me close. Happy, he asked. Terrified. But yes. Still afraid it'll disappear? Every day. Good. That means it's real. He kissed my forehead. I replied. In Gyeongsang dialect. The old way. The way that meant, I love you, and I'm choosing to build a future in the language of our past. He smiled. Perfect. Below, through the window, I saw Kang Hyun-woo reading his memoirs. Lips moving. Remembering. Would have loved this, I thought. Would have loved knowing her granddaughter ended up here. Speaking the old language. Making peace with old ghosts. The waitress who'd been invisible had become undeniable. And the families who'd been broken by betrayal had been healed by a language nobody spoke anymore. Except us. If this story kept you company tonight. If it reminded you of the languages you carry, the ones your grandmothers taught you, the dialects of memory and belonging that nobody else speaks. If it made you believe that the people who hurt your family don't have to define your future. Don't leave without marking your place. Subscribing helps these Korean mafia romance stories about women who choose to be seen, who speak languages of forgiveness, who build families from ruins, reach others who need them as much as you did tonight. Grace spent 6 years hiding. She chose to stop running when Min-ho offered something more valuable than safety, the chance to be known. That's not just her story. That's the story of every person who's ever had to choose between invisibility and love. Between hiding and being real. Thank you for listening to the end. For staying when it got quiet. For understanding that the best love stories aren't about being saved, they're about choosing to save yourself, then choosing someone who sees you doing it and says, I choose you too. That alone says everything about who you are. Welcome home.